Mhm. And also let me share the screen as well. Extension, this one is there. Okay. I hope my screen is visible. I think my screen is visible. Yeah. Okay. 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 Thank you, everyone. I think we can start now. We are starting this session. And before starting this session, first of all, Happy Christmas to everyone who's celebrating this festival. Okay. And thank you for joining this session. And this is one of the sessions in the Kotlin series that we have started, where we are trying to learn Kotlin, different concepts of Kotlin. If you're new, it's very good for you. Even if you know the Kotlin, it also kind of refreshing and you will might find something new learning in these concepts. So thank you for for your time to run this session. Yeah, I hope you guys will learn something in this session. So let's start. Let's start with the introduction of mine. So, hi everyone. My name is Ankit Kumar, and I'm currently working in Gojek as an Android engineer, and I'm also an Android educator in the Google Android Educator program. So that's the simple introduction about me. And the topic to discuss today is about extension functions in Kotlin. This is one of the very highlighted feature of the Kotlin, right? And it's also one of the highly used feature in multiple projects, right? You might have seen this extension functions. You might already been using it, or you might seen somewhere, might heard this concept of extension functions. So we'll be exploring this concept today, and since we are mostly covering this Kotlin because of the Android part, because now when we will go to the Android, now people are mostly tend to use Kotlin, right? So we are learning this Kotlin for the Android. So I will be taking a lot of here and there from Java as well, because previously Java was being used for developing the Android application. So most of the people who are new to Kotlin will might be starting in Kotlin, and most of the people will be coming from Java as well. So it's important to also give them idea how it get called, this kind of function get called from Java, and how it looks in Java as well. So yeah, let's get started, guys. So when we think about extension functions, we might have think, okay, there might be some extension to this function. What the hell is this? First we heard about this. So before understanding this extension functions, I want you to guys go through the functions first of all. There are a lot of things that has changed in functions when we talk about in Java, in Kotlin, right? So both the concepts of function is different. Okay, in Java there is normal way to create function, but in Kotlin there is some extra feature that you get when you write code in Kotlin instead of Java. So let's first understand what are those features, and how it's better than Java functions, so that when we talk about extension function, you will get a lot of idea, what are these things in the extension functions. Okay. So normal function, please ignore this generic. I do not intend to give any talk on this one now. We will be discussing this after this session or something. So please ignore this generic. So this is the normal way to create a function. And last session we talk about what is this return type, and these are the parameters, how you can create the function in the Kotlin. So this is basically the normal way of function in Kotlin. And this function is basically help you to join the strings, okay, on the collection. So let's say if you have this collection, this list of 1 2 3, and you wanted to add format output, okay, because when we do two string, it will be printing normally in the square braces, right? But I wanted to create two string which will be formatted in this way. You can see the output here. So I created this function called the join to string, and we will be learning about the function difference from Kotlin to Java from this function itself. Okay, so we have these few parameters in the functions, and then we have this uh, action, or you can say the task we have performed to append, this string to the way that I wanted to, show the output, and then finally result, I have returned the result. Okay, so okay, now what's better in Kotlin in terms of function? So I'm just comparing here the function in Kotlin and Java. So name arguments. Okay, first of all, you got the advantage in Kotlin that okay, let's say you have two or three functions only here in Kotlin, right? Now when you will be working on the real world, there might be a lot of, the parameters would be there. It would be around 9, 10. You don't remember all those names. So when you're working on Java, you don't have, name parameter there. Okay, so you have to go, if you create this function that you might remember, but let's say if this function coming from some third party library or something, you have to go there to understand, okay, at which parameter numbers, either it's the string type or some what type of, data type is there, or it might be a string type, all the type would be a string type, but you have to understand the parameter places, right? You have to understand separate is number 2 place, prefix is number 3 place. So accordingly you will give the values, right, when you call this function. So this is very hard to, to provide the values to the Java function. But when you work in the Kotlin, you got the feature of name arguments. You can actually provide the name to the argument so that you remember. Also, let's say even though you go to in the Java, let's say even though, okay, you go each time and you figure out, okay, at number 3 this is the type of data that I need to provide, and you figure out everything. Let's say you leave the project, a new person comes, he or she did not understand, okay, why, what is the parameter meaning of this, what's the name of this parameter. He or she has to go again to that function declaration or function definition to understand, okay, what are these parameter names, what it do. But in Kotlin you have the name argument, right, that you will use, so that new person comes in, they suddenly understand, okay, this function is for joining the string, this is prefix, and this is postfix value that we are sending, right? So it is much more readable in Kotlin, right, because of the name argument that you do not get in Java. So how does the people will do in Java? They normally use, comments here. They use multi-line comments, do comments, so that the uh, extra whenever they leave the project or some new developers comes in, they easily able to understand the parameters here, right? So that's very tedious. But when you are doing name arguments in Kotlin, when you're writing Kotlin, so IDE will also help you to, write this much faster, because they will provide you, suggestions that you can use it to use the name argument, right? So this is one of the feature, you could say, in Kotlin. Right. So this is the name argument, that we can use. And I think, yeah, this is not name argument. This is, I think I have to forgot a name, update it. This is actually default arguments. So default argument in Kotlin, you got the default argument feature, but in Java you don't have the concept of default argument. Okay, so what the default argument is basically, when you do not provide the value of this parameter, it will take the default value. Okay, that whatever default value it got when it get declared, right, in the function. So whenever somebody calls join to string with only list, so it will compiler will look for, okay, these are the default values. They will, they do not require you to add more parameters values, because they already got one if you do not provide any. So in the Kotlin you get this feature that if you do not provide arguments, it will take the default arguments. But in Java you don't have those things. People tend to create more methods in order to do these kind of things. Okay, for example, you might have used thread class, right, thread, for creating new threads in Java. So there are multiple arguments in thread constructor itself. So they have created 8 constructor methods, right, to have this kind of, for each methods they have different methods. They have 8 methods to support this kind of default values. Okay, so now in Kotlin, you don't have to create, those many duplication methods or something like that. You can use the uh, default parameters. Okay, let me update the name. It might be get confusing to you guys. Here is the default parameters, default arguments, you could say. Now, so this is, and if you wanted to, okay, for example, let's say you have created this in Kotlin, but Kotlin and Java is interoperable, right? You can call Kotlin functions from Java. So how does this work in Kotlin, in Java? So you have to, like, in order to do this, you can also provide the multiple. uh, if you do not do anything, you have to provide each values. They are not, there is no concept of default argument, right? So you have to provide the separator, prefix, and postfix values, like this one, the first example. If you don't do, I think it will show you some error. But you wanted to do something like this in Java. What you have to do is basically you have to add, uh, you have to add this JVM overloads, okay, at the function, on the top of the function, right? So that in the Java implementation, what it will do is it will create multiple methods, same duplication method, but multiple methods with the value already provided, right? So if you wanted to take advantage of this default argument, you have to use this JVM overload. So it will create multiple methods, Java JVM overloading, method overloading, right? So it will create multiple methods with the same name but different arguments, right? So you can use this one, but still it will create multiple methods. That is the disadvantage in Java. I hope you got the idea of this, the default arguments part. Okay. One of the important and one of the thing in Java is, let's say you have a lot of utils methods. You might have seen a methods which will use to create, maybe if you, let's say you have string and you wanted to find out the last character of this. So there is a utility class in your project where, there is a class called string util. It contains, methods for manipulating the strings, right? You might have seen a lot of utility classes in Java. And not only it, there is a one disadvantage is basically is that a lot of people create utility classes which contains different methods, okay? And different methods do not work on string, they work on different object as well. It might work on list class, list, array list. It might work on string, it might work on hash map. So let's say I wanted to create a method to get the, you know to to add two values of hash maps. So I go to utility class, I create a new method. Okay, now you can see that class is now responsible for handling multiple objects and, creating multiple behaviors. So that will be violating of, single responsibility of a class. Because we, like, when we learn from solid principles, which is very important when you do Android, which says a single class should have only one responsibility, it should not have multiple responsibility, okay? But when we code in, like, when we uh, code in like a code utility classes, we might have create multiple methods that is not only handling one thing, it handling multiple things, okay? So this is one of the pain when we do in utility classes, because it violate the single responsibility principle. So let's say we have this function, okay, right? We have this, let's put the function in Join.kt, which is join to string. Okay, so this function, now in Kotlin you have the power to put the function on the top of the file. You don't have to create a class, because Java is a pure object oriented language, right? You cannot create a method at the top of the file. Like, without having a class, you cannot create a method, right? You have to create a class in order to create a method. But in Kotlin, you have the power of creating a function only, because, as I said, it's both, it's a functional programming as well as object oriented language as well. So since it's a functional programming, you can create a normal function just to join two strings. You don't have to create a class, right? Let's say I wanted to create a one utility method. Why should I have to create a class? In order to create a class, then then at the caller point I have to create object, because without object I cannot call this method, right? But since in the Kotlin you can create top level functions, you don't have to create functions, right? You just have to call this function, right, without any class. So that's the, one of the removal of boilerplate code from Java in Kotlin. So in Kotlin you don't have to create class in order to create a method. So let's say, okay, now in this example I will be explaining you, this is in the Kotlin, but how it will look in Java. Okay, let's understand this. So you have this join to string method that I have just, show you one or two slides ago. And this is what it will generate in Kotlin, right? It will, what it will do, okay, we have this. So I created this join to string in a join.kt. let's say I've used this, join.kt as a file name for the Kotlin files. So .kt is the extension for Kotlins. So in this file, I create this join to string, but how it will be implemented in Java, it will be like this. It will create join.kt, right? And in there, it will create a static method, which is join to string. And then the same method implementation will be there, right? And when you call this from Java class, what you have to call is join kt dot join to string. You have to do like this. Like, this is how you can implement Kotlin functions, top level functions in Java. This is the way. Let's say you don't want to make, file name. Let's say, because you see, whatever file name that you have created and you provide the function, the file name will be used as a class, which is join kt, not join kt. Okay. But you wanted to update, your file name. What you can do, you can use this annotation, which is file jvm name and string functions. So what it will do, it will create class of this jvm name that you have provided. So now it will be like string function. So you can, provide the meaningful name for this, this utility function join to string, because join kt doesn't make any sense, right? So in order to provide meaningful name, you can use this annotation as well in Java. This is, I want you guys to understand, how it is done in Kotlin. And if you are still using Java, how you are able to, how you are able to call these, Kotlin functions, and how you can update the name of file as well. Okay. So far that I have explained about functions in Kotlin and comparison in Java, has anyone has any question? Do let me know, please. If you want me to repeat something, I can also repeat if you don't understand that part. That's totally fine. Okay. I think super cool. Everyone is understanding everything. That's so good for me. Okay. I think I got the question. JVM static. One second. Overload. This is in this one. So so JVM name here. Okay, I think you might want to understand this one. JVM name. Okay, so it will do when it will create a Java class. When the dot classes and Java classes will be get creating. So it will be the name of file. You can see the file JVM name. So when the JVM will create a class file for this one, so it will use string functions for this Java class to create. Before, if you do not provide the JVM name, default would be whatever your Kotlin file name is there. So it will be used join.kt. So it will be take whole file name. It will remove dot here and it will use join.kt as a class. Because since you don't have any concept of top level function, because without class you cannot create method, and Java cannot call this function directly. It has to call from object, because it's an object oriented programming language, right? So in order to call this function in Java, what it will do, it will take the file name as a class name, and then it will create a static method of this same method name that you have provided, and use the implementation, whatever implementation that you have provided, it will call the same one. Copy and paste. Awesome. Okay. Extension functions. Okay, this is super cool in the Kotlin. So this gives you ability to extend any class functions or behavior, you could say. Okay, so it's kind of magic. At first you will see here. So what's the magic is, okay, you have a class like say string. Okay, and you wanted to add a method, like a method which seen like a member function of that string class. Okay, so for example, let's say somebody use last character. You create a method called last char, and you want somebody to use as a string dot last char, so it does look like that it's calling from string class. Okay, so that people would not think, okay, this is not, this is the utility function. So now when we creating extension functions, it's mostly based on what class we wanted to extend. Okay, the functionality of that class we wanted to extend. It doesn't depend either it's your class or maybe third party library class, whatever class it would be. You can create or extend the functionality of that class so that it will look like that the your function is a part of that class. So when somebody use the utility functions, so most of the extension function is kind of like utility functions in Kotlin projects or Android projects. So what's the advantages of this is it it's belong to that particular class, right? Because if you wanted to manipulate string, so we will call string dot last char, right? We will not go utility object utility utils dot last char. It would be very differentiate mindset, right, when we write code. But when we do string dot last char, we understand, okay, it would be giving us the last character of this string class, right? So that's the advantage of extension functions. So let's understand how does it look at first. So this is the basic extension function. Okay, you remember in the last session I talked about this expressive bodies. When you are just providing a single line, you don't have to open and close braces. If you have expression a single line, this is called the expressive bodies of this function. Okay, so extension function, you can create extension function as the expressive body, as a block body as well. Block body in where you have open braces and curly braces, and inside you write the code. So you can like do like this because it's a simple function, but it can add to a particular class, right? So you have to, okay, this is the structure. The string here is a receiver type. Okay, you have to write the receiver class, that which class I wanted to add that functionality of, and this is the function name, okay, that you wanted to create. And the return type, whatever return type you wanted to do, you can do the return type. Now the advantage of extension class is that you got the object of this here. So this is basically a receiver object. That means, okay, string already have a lot of function, right, like length or index of, those kind of, you can use those function directly here using this. Okay, so you can see this dot get. So get is basically get the character. This is the member function of this string class, right? So you can use, you got the receiver object, okay, in extension function. So by using receiver object, you can call the method of the string class and you can manipulate there. Okay, so let's see the example. You can see the Kotlin. It's a string, right? And the way that we call the last character, it's look like it's from the string class, right? It doesn't look like it's from the some utility class. So this is the advantage of extension function, that it will give you the idea of it's from that. Okay, so this is the last char here. And what it will do is it will go and call this method, and it will go inside this one. Since this is receiver object, so this is equal to this Kotlin. Okay, so this is referring to this Kotlin, and it will call get length is basically Kotlin, whatever length is there. So in this case it's 6 minus 1, which is 5, and it will give the last character. Definitely that would be a n, the output. Hope you get the idea, what's the extension function is and how it look like basically. Okay, so it's you write as a normal function, but it's extend the functionality of that class. Okay, you can use extension function on collections. Might be if you're working on view, custom view, you can also extend some functionality of the custom view class. It gives a lot of powers to extend the functionality. So this is the extension function is. So when we talk about this extension function, so basically in Java implementation, how does it look is basic. I don't have actually that, sorry for that, but I don't have currently the image or the class that I can show you, but I can give you the idea. So in Java, how does this look like is basically it will create a class. Okay, and it will create a static method for this last char, because as I said, extension functions can be inside the class and can be top of the file. Top of the file means only function is there is no class. So it will create the same way. You remember I talked about the previous one. Okay, in the same way, let's say you have created an extension function for join to string, okay, which is on the string. So how the Java class creation would work, whatever file name that you have provided for that Kotlin, it will be taken as a class. Okay, and it will create the same static method, the same, nothing change, everything would be same, but only change is there. whatever class you are extending, it will be passed as a parameter here, passed as a parameter. Okay, remember, whatever class your extension function is working on, receiver type, you see here is a receiver. Please understand this carefully. You have this receiver type string. Okay, so it will be passed as an object in a static function. So you have this last char, and you created this function inside Join.kt. So in the Java class, how does it look like? It will create Join.kt as class, and it will create a static method. The return type, whatever return type you have provided here, so you have provided as a character, right, as a return type, same, the character would be there. You have the name, whatever method you have, last character, right, you have name as a last char. Only difference is that you got this string object here. Okay, so this Kotlin will be provided in that parameter. Okay, so, and this will be replaced as that string object. This is, since it is passed as a parameter string object, so it will be calling dot get from that string object. Let me show you. It might be difficult to understand, you guys. Playground. This is the playground that you guys can also use to play around the Kotlin. Okay, so you have this class. Oh, sorry. Let's say you got this class you have join kt. Okay, and you have opened this one. Now your method would be public static, uh, maybe char, and join to, or maybe last character. You have name as a last char, right? And it will pass as string as an object, as a parameter. Now you see the difference here. So this is how this is how it will implemented in Java. Okay, so this is string dot get is get called, right, and string dot length minus one. Okay, and it will call the return. This is how it will be look like in Java. You get the idea, right? It is whole Java is that only that whatever class you are extending, it will be passed as a parameter in that function in the implementation of Java classes. Please do unmute your mic, maybe ask some question, because this is very very important to understand how it look like in Java, because most of the time you will get this question in an interview as well, like how does it implement in Java. Okay, so please do open the mic if you don't understand this, please. I will happy to answer your question. I think you got the idea, right? Because extension function, whatever the function you are extending on some class, any class collection, maybe view system, maybe text view, anything, it will be provided as a parameter. Okay, that's how it will implement in Java. Okay, okay, super cool. And this is the way that you can call, normal way that you can call that extension function. Okay, there are some properties I want you to guys to understand. You can create the function as it's look like a member function, right? Because nobody would say here last character is not a member function, because it look like we can call it from string, right? So it will create a member like function. Okay, it create function third party code base. You can also create extension function on third party code base. I mean, you might can create more methods in okay HTTP library. It can be from any Google library, any other library. You can create extension function on any class. Okay, and also any language. It does not depend only on Kotlin. Let's say if you are getting um, library from Groovy is also a Java JVM based language, and you can also add the extension function in the Groovy class as well. Any JVM class, until and unless it is creating a Java classes. Remember, all the JVM classes who's creating Java classes, you can create extension function on that class. Okay. One disadvantage of J extension function is that you cannot access private and protected member of the base class. So I cannot, okay, you can see the string class, right? I cannot access the the protected members or private members of that class. Okay, so if we remember on this one, a lot of people will say extension function equal to inheritance. So advantage is that basically in inheritance you have to create a class, right? You have to inherit that class, and then you can use the protect members. They have different advantages. Okay, you cannot inherit final class, but you can create extension function on final class. These are some advantages that you have to look for, right? Either you wanted to use extension function, or you have wanted to use the inheritance. So I'm giving you that properties. So you can also call the function on the nullable object. So let's say you have the string of null type, you can also call the function, because you can create like nullable dot. So that means even if the object is nullable, the function will still get called, right? Because in normal situation you have object, right? And you cannot create a object method if it's a null, right? But in case of extension function, you can do call the function on nullable object. You got the power. Can create extension function of final class. Okay, yes. If it's a final class, that means it cannot inherit anymore. You still able to create extension function on the final class. It doesn't matter if it's a final class, open class, right? Okay, how you can import this. Okay, as I said, it's a function. Okay, it's a function. That means if you are outside of that package where you have created that function, if you are outside from that package, you have to import it. Okay, so you have to import that function, extension function. So this is how it will look like. And if you import everything from that package, definitely all the functions that you have written there will be import. And you can also, okay, this is very interesting one. Okay, let's see. Last, okay, let's say last char. You have different utility function as a last char, like you have multiple method of same name. Okay, so how does you can avoid the conflict? You can use as a keyword. Okay, so it will give you a power of, you can use the same function name but as a name of last. Okay, this is the advantage using this as keyword in Kotlin. Let's say you have another, um, let's say you have overloaded method, you might have different package where you have also last char. Okay, so how you would avoid the conflict? You can use last char as last, so the function name will get changed eventually. So functionality would be same, just the function name will get changed. So you can see the as advantage here. One more interesting thing in extension function, it's a statically resolved. Statically means at the compile time, compiler would know what is the output of this. Okay, I'll give you a better example here. So you can see this code. We have the shape, we have the rectangle, which is a child of this parent. Okay, now I created two extension function. Okay, I create shape.getName, I create rectangle.getName. You can see print class name, I send rectangle, and in this function which is print class, this is not extension function, this is normal function, but it is taking shape as a object as a parameter, and it is called the extension function on that object. Now can anybody can write in the comment what would be the output of this s.getName? It's a shape or rectangle? Please do let me know in the comment. I wanted to know just quickly. I'm sending this rectangle in this object, and I'm calling this name get name. So it will be called shape.getName or rectangle.getName. Can you write the output? Like what would be the output of this println? Anyone else? Thanks, brother. Anyone else? Rectangle. Okay. If we are in the object-oriented programming, and if we are using method overriding, right? So that is polymorphism. That will be dynamic, right? You if you learn the concept of object-oriented programming, you will see polymorphism is a dynamic or runtime happens, but this is static. So that means if you are calling shape dot get name, it doesn't care like it's what object it will pass out on the runtime. It will give get name of this shape. That's it's called the resolved statically, not dynamically. It will not care if it's a rectangle object or whatever object you have passed as a child. It will just look this class, and it will call the extension function for that class, not the child class. Okay, so be remember extension function will get resolved statically, okay, not dynamically. Okay, hope you guys get the concept. Yeah, that's it about the extension function. You can also go through the documentation on the Kotlin. Yeah, if there is anyone has any question, do let us. Mhm. So yeah, it's only an extension function. So in general case, people use overriding, right? You override a method in shape, and you have the method in shape, and you override from in the rectangle. Okay. Now in the overriding method, so since it's a concept of polymorphism, okay, right? So when you provide the rectangle in the runtime, it will get figured out. So in runtime, what would happen? It will compiler will go runtime will go this place, print class name. It will send rectangle in shape, and when the get name that called, so since it's a object of rectangle, so the get name will call from rectangle because it's now running. It's like a dynamic, right? But in the case of extension function, it will only get resolved at statically. That means it will not will see okay what type of object you are sending. It will call on the type of parameter that you have. Okay, like hope you get the idea here. So it's only called whatever class name is here. So this S is a class of shape, right? It does not will go for okay what child object is passing to it. It is know that it's a class of shape object on, since it's a extension function of that class of the shape class, not rectangle class, so it will only call the shape class extension function, not rectangle class in the runtime. This is the case of extension function. Quite confusing, right? You got some idea, brother, in this one? Just think extension as a statically resolved. So statically means जो भी class यहाँ पे होगा, yeah, it's a is a shape or anything, it will only call that class extension function. It will not go for whatever object it's passed from callee point, जहाँ पे call हो रहा है, it will not go there. Just think like statically only. Okay, that's it from my side, everyone. uh I hope you learned something, maybe 5%, 10%. हाँ हाँ, sure sure. Extension function is basically you are extending class functionality, not function functionality. Okay, it's extending a class functionality, right? No, there is no inheritance in this one. So, like as I said, in Kotlin, it looked like as an inheritance, but it is not. But when you will look as a Java point of view, you will understand because different classes get created, right? When they are calling the extension function, so it's not inheritance because you are not subclassing the shape. You know, don't go for this example. The example of string one. Mhm. Yes. So it will okay in because in the end it will get created as a dot class, right? So in that class there will be a class, as I said, whatever file name that you have created for that extension function, it will take that file name as a class, new class. Okay, and it will create a static function of the name of function last care, here in this example last care. So okay, one thing I wanted to show you, one more thing, you will get the idea. Yeah, like on which class you wanted to call that. So in this case, this is string already, right? I have created the Kotlin as string. Let's say if you have created an extension function or array list. So object of array list dot that function name. Yes, yes, yes. So this is will look like this is the function of that object, right? Yes. So this is actually object. Basically, you cannot call it class directly until it's a static, you're calling static method. So normally we use object, right, for that class, and then this function. So it will just the extension function is just there for extend the functionality of that class, right? Let's say you wanted to manipulate that class, and you cannot update that class because you don't own it, because string you don't have any access to string source code, right? And you wanted to create a method like this. What you will normally do, you will create a utility class, and you there you will pass a string object and return a value. So extension function give you a power to feel like extending the class source class. So now in your project where you have imported this function, so people or developers will look like, okay, this is the function of this string class look like. Okay, well, I will show you calling extension function from Java, this one. I'll show you how it will look like in Java. So when you go here, okay, we can see this is string utils kt. This is how it will get called in Java, not like directly like how it is called in Kotlin, like the way. No, in Java it will still will look like a utility class where you have called this class name dot and then the method name. Why I did not create object here? Because it's a static method, right? So I directly call the class name dot the method. This is how you will create call extension function in Java. Okay, you guys understand, right? This is how you are able to call that method. When you are writing purely in Kotlin, you don't have to call the class. You just go with the object dot extension function name. Basically, that's the advantage of writing code in Kotlin instead of Java. But if you still wanted to call, if you have a still Java project or Java classes, this is how you are able to call that extension function. Because in the end, it's a utility function, nothing more. Okay, it's a way of reading. It's a way of increase the readability in Kotlin, that you can call this function on the object of that class. Okay, that's it. It's a utility class under the hood. Yes, you can create. There is no issue, but that would be only private for that class only. You cannot use that function anywhere in your project. Okay, because that's the access modifier. Open keyword in sense of, oh yeah, yeah, that you want to override that one that you wanted to say. Yeah, yeah, you can do that. Okay, nice guys, good questions. Oh, okay, yeah, awesome. So yeah, let's say you have the same name you are saying, right? Okay, so let's say you have the math in the shape you have already have get name, and I created a get name as an extension function. This is you wanted to say, right? Nice question. So okay, the question is you have a shape class, and in shape class you already had a method called getName, and I create another extension method with the same name. So in this case, be remember always this member function will get win in this case. So when you call getName, the member function of shape getName get called, not the extension function one. Okay, so understand this concept. Remember this one. Always member function will win in the name process. Yeah, one more thing, guys. Let's say in this case, you can see the class name string utils kt. This is the file name. In case you wanted to change the file name, what you can do? You remember there is a JVM file name I have introduced, right? You can also write that file name there. Where it is? Yeah, this is so that when it is get called from Java, it will be not your file name. It will be this JVM file name string functions. Okay, this you can also take it. That's why I explained you this concept earlier of functions. Okay, awesome. Please show the slide for string char. String char. Which one? String char. This one. That's okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I think it will be go over 1 hour. As slide. Oh, okay, okay. That one. Import one you're saying. This one. This is for conflict name conflict remove. So you have same method name, let's say. So you can use this as keyword to change the method name only. Okay. I think that's it from my side, everyone. Hope you guys learned something maybe in this video. Can you please? Okay.